Each of our country's national heritage areas is unique and has a particular reason for being. Freedom's Way is certainly no exception. Stretching from Malden, Massachusetts to Winchendon and to New Ipswich, New Hampshire, the 45 community area is clearly unique for its central role in the American Revolution. But its natural landscape? Let's think about that. Every large landscape starts with a bunch of sand and rocks and dirt, some water running through them. Add continental shifts, glaciation, erosion, a frosting of plants, bushes, trees, wildlife. At that scale, Freedom's Way is not very different from half of North America. Its uniqueness is finer grained, outlined by a series of geological wrinkles. Can we see them? Sometimes it's almost impossible under 400 years of human history. But look from a distance, or squint your eyes, and the landscape tends to re-emerge. This is the mosaic respected by earlier peoples and defended by new protectors. For Freedom's Way, it begins in an unlikely place. The flat green alongside Route 16 in Malden defines sea level in the Boston Basin. And in this flat space, beyond the noise and the traffic, lies an unexpected urban oasis, the Mystic River Watershed Urban Trail, where traffic gives way to birdsong and rushes sway in the wind along more than 10 miles of river access trails. Upstream a few miles, the basin flats give way to the first of Freedom's Way's geological wrinkles, the upthrust underlying Arlington's Mystic Lakes. The dammed river is lively in the summer with boats and swimmers, but in April the lakes belong to gulls and cormorants, anxious for the spring herring run to begin. A fish ladder in the dam here replaces rocky rapids. This year, 62,562 of them made it upstream. A quasi-medieval stone tower is to many commuters on busy Route 93 their only familiarity with the Middlesex Fells Reservation. But the wooded acres that top Massachusetts' first rise from sea level protect a dozen ponds and reservoirs, the water supply of Winchester and a number of other communities. In spring, this is one of the richest places to hunt for native wildflowers, especially if you're lucky to be in the company of botanist and Fells neighbor Brian Hamlin.
So basically, the Fells is 3 ridges of hills with 2 valleys in between. Mostly volcanic, it's mostly granite, and a hell of a lot of great big boulders, as you can see over here. Because it is totally inside of Route 128, and it's close to 3,000 acres. And you out here, you can't imagine that you're in a big city.
North and west of the Fells Wrinkle lie the gentler lands and waterways of the coastal plain. Concord, Sudbury, and surrounding towns share slow-moving rivers, swaths of natural meadow, and rich alluvial floodplain. These have been welcoming areas to settlers and to wildlife for more than 8 millennia. In this place of rivers and meadows, annual Earth Day celebrations include geese and newts, bear, and the Musketaquid otter waiting to take part in a grand environmental parade. While rafts of nature's gifts float down the Concord River toward the sea. West of the flat plains and easy rivers of Concord and surrounding towns, the glacial features and the anomalies become more obvious. Littleton's Oak Hill, highest point in the immediate area, is actually a center of earthquake activity. It is also the site of Tophet Chasm. The chasm was carved by meltwater released in a glacial dam break. Carving its way along the path of least resistance, the cascade created a groove more than 100 feet deep. Here, the Native American drumming evokes the spirit of Neshoba, a name for a much larger area, once occupied by Sachem Tahatawan's people and their ancestors. Every town in this part of Freedom's Way has its own evidence of the most recent ice age and of the millennia that came before.
This used to be oceanfront property here. Okay, we look east. You can't see the ocean now, but you could then. And by then I mean 450 million years ago, when this siltstone was being laid down, there was a lapping ocean not too far away from us to the east. So you can imagine, with a mile-high glacier, it scoured like a bulldozer, took anything, any soil, any gravel from the previous glacial period, because we know of 5 at least, okay? And it went all the way down to bedrock. So it removed everything until it was grinding on the rock under us, okay? And so when it left little highs and lows. And those highs and lows formed the ponds that we see today.
The evidence is everywhere. Glacial till makes up a cart track. Boulders were smoothed by icy journeys. Erratics like the great roll stone silhouetted on a granite hill, a Fitchburg icon now enshrined in the city square, or the sacred tortoise slowly making his way uphill from Littleton's Nagog Pond. The eskers and drumlins that define this second Freedom's Way wrinkle have provided high ground for travel for thousands of years, and they offer long west-facing vistas. More times than not, Mount Wachusett draws the eye in the distance. But between here and there is the broad watershed of the Nashua River. The river begins at the lower end of what is now Wachusett Reservoir. Once, this was glacial Lake Nashua, a long northeast meander that left when it drained away pebbled lakebed and high sandbanks, clear water, significant floodplain. Much of the river's flow now is gentle through Harvard and the Oxbow National Wildlife Refuge, defining the edge of Groton's Harry Rich State Forest, laying down the wetlands and the sandy landscape of south-central New Hampshire. Behind the old warehouses, next to the abandoned railroad bridge, we finally come to the end of the Nashua River. Steep sandbanks on both sides hint at the work that went on here thousands of years ago as the Nashua dug its way down through the sand plain, the edge of glacial Lake Nashua. Its confluence with the Merrimack in a remarkably peaceful area. A fireplace at the conjunction remind us that this was once a major Native American meeting ground for fishing and the diplomacy necessary to maintain the peace among the tribes. Today, a mile or so to the west, the Nashua National Fish Hatchery keeps watch over thousands of spawning salmon, new stock to replace populations thought lost to industrialization. The range of landscapes in the Nashua River Valley is ancestral home to the Nipmuc people and farther north the Pennacook. In the time before now, they were wide-ranging and loose-knit clans, drawing on the sparser but seasonally varied resources of this interior watershed. Between the Nipmuc and their traditional enemies to the west lies another wrinkle and a swath of rough country. This wrinkle is the top of the watershed divide between the Nashua and the Connecticut rivers. It is anchored to the south by Wachusett Mountain, an ancient monadnock that withstood the destruction of 5 ice ages. Point of reference and surveillance for centuries, Wachusett towers above the lower elevations on a line with Mount Monadnock to the north. Springs and brooks make their way up and out of rock layers, stumbling down a rock-strewn slide toward the river valley below. Captured first for industry, many mill ponds are now reservoirs, recreation areas for towns and cities downstream. Today, this is a landscape of state forests and wildlife management areas, tall, cool groves, and shallow-soiled uplands. A few inaccessible areas still host old-growth forest. Massive sugar maples still line ancient ways, but many species are fast-growing and shallow-rooted. Even the ground covers here put up with fewer nutrients and colder winters, while hemlock groves provide permanent shade on rock slab slopes. These are the eastern reaches of the Wapak Range. Mount Watatic is the most dramatic of the peaks in this range. It stands at the northwest edge of Freedom's Way, and looking back south and east, the contours become progressively softer, gentler, slopes and hills, valleys hidden beneath greenery, an occasional sand pit. Up a wall-lined dirt road in Hollis, New Hampshire, is a lovely old Greek Revival farmhouse. Today, it is the center of the Beaver Brook Association, a nonprofit conservation organization managing 2,000 acres of contiguous preserved land.
The mother of the family, the Colburn family, used to take children for weekend nature hikes down this way and up in the field and just teach them about flowers. And the mission has really been maintained. The teaching people about the interrelationships between themselves and the natural world, and how to be stewards of natural resources, so not just land, but water, air, energy. All of those things have been maintained in our programs and have been shared with tens of thousands of people every year.
Beaver Brook is about as far away as you can get in Freedom's Way from the Fells in Medford. And at first glance, it would seem to be about as far away culturally as well. But look beyond the obvious, and there are vital connectors in this varied landscape. Some of them have been here for more than a century, many for decades. They work together in many ways to protect the large landscape and the mosaic of Freedom's Way.